Well, hello. Hi, Linda.
Hello, Aubrey. How are you today?
I'm wonderful. How are you?
I'm excited to do week 2.
I am too. And I see a whole bunch of mystery quilters with us in the comments.
Yep.
So good to see you all. And I see Joni's on here. I'm glad your machine is back from the spa. All right. So we got people from all over the place joining us today to see week 2. So let me ask you this. I always like to ask a couple questions. You don't have to keep up with us, by the way, but who is done with week 1 and so excited that it's Wednesday? If that's you, give me a number 1 in the comments. If you are so excited it's week 2, but you're not done with week 1, give me a number 2 in the comments. And if you have drug your feet and you weren't sure about ordering and now you're like, oh man, give me a number 3 in the comments. By the way, you can still order. It's not done yet. But there we go. We got a very good mix here of 1s and 2s.
Great mix. Yes.
So
that's good. I saw a lot of beautiful blocks posted.
Yes.
Beautiful.
Yeah. Beautiful colors of different fabrics. I can't wait to see how all of them come together. So that'll be fun. Lots of 1s and 2s. And I also know, Linda, you wanted to say something today to your sister.
Yes. I would like to wish my sister Annie a very happy birthday today.
Yes.
Today's birthday, and she's on a well-deserved vacation, her and her husband Ray, your dad. So yes. I wish her a very happy birthday. And just to let you all know, she always calls me her much older sister. We will be the same age for about 5 weeks, I believe. We're very close in age. So yeah, I would love to wish Annie a happy birthday.
Yes. So happy birthday, Mama. And everyone say happy birthday to Annie in the comments. And she hopefully is not watching this. Hopefully they're doing something fun on their vacation.
I really wanted to do a fun picture of her, or like an interesting picture of her, but then I thought payback. So I decided not to.
Yeah, because yours is in like a month. So just that's probably smart.
Good remember.
That's right. Okay, so thank you for wishing her happy birthday in the comments. Also, I know we've got a big reveal for week 2. So whenever you're ready, we can do that.
Let's do it.
I'm excited to see these come down. I'm going to make your screen big.
Okay. So if you've downloaded your files, you already know what we're going to do today. So I'm going to turn over week 2 blocks. So we have A2 and B1. And as you can see, they are a really cute Ohio Star block.
I love them. Look how good it is with week 1 right next to it.
Yeah. And then we have, so there's 5 Ohio Star blocks. So there's 3 more here. And then we have our quilted blocks. You can probably see a little bit of a theme building here, that we have quilted blocks for each block. So these are Ohio Star quilted blocks. And I don't remember who did it. Aubrey, you might. Someone already got them done today.
I don't remember. There's so many good things being shared in that group that I can't remember the names at this point.
Yeah, so someone already got them done today. So that's cool. So let me bring my little iPad a little bit closer, and hopefully you can see. There's the Ohio Star block.
Beautiful.
And the quilted block, trying to line up my camera without being able to see it. There we go. There's your Ohio Star quilted block.
So pretty.
Yeah.
What do we think, you guys? Let's see some hearts and excitement going on in the comments. Week 2 is here. Woohoo! She said, Diane said her last quilted block is stitching out right now.
Good for you. That's way to keep ahead. So cool. All right. So let's talk about what we're going to do today. Let me bring up this camera. There we go. Or did you have something you want to talk about, Aubrey? Or are we ready to do this?
Nope, you do it.
Okay. So I'll show you the little 5-inch. The one on the wall behind me is actually an 8-inch. Here's the little 5-inch in the spring colors. I love them. They're so cute. I love
it too.
And once again, we're doing 3 columns. So this is your Ohio Star 1 column. So we need 2 Ohio Star 1 columns. And this is the Ohio Star 2 column. So you can see they're all pieced, which is, we got a fun way to do this right in the hoop. And this is just our quilted block. I think these are pretty just on their own. And a lot of you I've seen are doing some beautiful thread colors on them.
Yes.
A lot of variegated threads. So it should be kind of fun to see how they all turn out. So for each, you're going to make 5 of the pieced ones. And so to do that, we're going to go ahead and go to page 2. We had a lot of questions with the fabric and thread key as to why there was so much fabric left over after you cut it. So now you're going to see why. So you are going to do some strip piecing ahead of time. Now these are just little demo pieces. They're not the actual length, but you're going to take your full length pieces of your fabric 1 and 2. You're going to sew them together with a 1/4 inch seam and press the seam open, which I've done here. Then you're going to do your shorter pieces. These are the 22-inch pieces of your fabric. Let me turn it this way. Fabric 2 and 3. Sew that together. Press your seam open. And then you're going to cross cut them. So strip set 1 was the blue and the fabric 1 and 2. You're going to cross cut to make 15. So you will make 15 of these. I've got a couple here. And then you will cross cut strip set 2 and you will make 5 of these. So that's why you had all of that extra fabric I had you cut. Hopefully that'll clear it up for you. And then we're going to start sewing. So I think I'm going to move my camera over, Aubrey, to the sewing machine if you have something you want to share.
All right. So while she's moving her camera, just so that we don't get people dizzy, I'm going to pop myself up here. I have seen a couple very specific questions about files and different things like that. So I do want to pop up our customer service phone number. This will just help because we can answer you one-on-one and get you specifically taken care of. So if that's you and you have questions about the download or how to get the files, things like that, contact us on our customer service line after the live. Nina's in the comments right now, but that will help. And Linda, it looks like your camera might be upset. Oh, she's got it. She's got it. Okay. All right. You ready?
Give me 1 sec. I want to move my. I think I'm ready.
Okie dokie.
Okay, so here you can see I've already started. Hold on. I thought I was ready. I'm close, so close. So we're going to stitch the Ohio Star 1 first, which is right here. It's a little dark. Hopefully you can see okay. So the fabrics we need for the Ohio Star 1 is our optional wool, which I am going to use. And we will need a triangle of your fabric 2 and 3, and then squares of your fabric 1. That's a little bright, isn't it? I'm going to take that down. Take that light down on the machine.
Mm-hmm.
Better. There we go. Okay. Okay, so those are the fabrics we need. So I have gone ahead, and we also will need a strip set. We will need this strip set right here. So I've gone ahead and I've already stitched step 1 onto my battleizer. And I did it in a dark thread so that you could see what it looks like. But you really should use your water-soluble thread. So you'll put your water-soluble thread in the needle. You will stitch step 1. And then step 2 is the tack down stitch, where you would do the optional wool. If you're not doing the optional wool, you can go ahead and skip over to step 3. So I will place my optional wool that I prepared ahead of time right over the top. Done in water soluble thread, but I'm going to do it in the green so you can see. And now it's going to also stitch a little bit of placement area so I know where to put my fabrics. Okay, so that's step 2. So step 3 is a tack down stitch. And this is going to be my fabric 2 triangle. So I'm going to take my fabric 2 triangle and I'm going to place it in this location right here. And I'm going to continue with my green thread, but you will keep going with your water soluble thread. So you can see, because I already stitched this block, that is that little triangle right there. Now the next step is to give it a good trim. Because I have white up here and I have white here, I want to get this trim to a scant 1/4 inch so that I don't have any fabric showing through once I get my white on. So I will use my mini hoop scissors and give it a little bit of a trim. There we go. Now the next step is to take my purple triangle, which is my fabric 3, and you will actually place that exactly over this fabric triangle, exactly in the same place. So if you look at the directions, you'll see it's placed the same way. And you need to keep your raw edges even. So I'm pretty much covering it up. And you will switch to a neutral thread this time because we've had water soluble on to this point. We don't want to sew a seam with water soluble. So you can skip, switch out your thread to a neutral thread. That could be an Aurifil or whatever you like to use for your seam. So I'm going to stitch this seam. So here's the seam I just stitched. And now we're going to do some finger pressing. So I'm going to fold this up and kind of press it with my finger really well, because we have a lot of quilting that's done on here. So we need to make sure we don't have any little creases or any little not pressed well areas. Otherwise it won't quilt very nice. So the next step is a tack down stitch. So I'll let it tack it down and you will stay with your neutral type thread. I'm going to go ahead and trim this to a scant 1/4 inch. I like everything to look real tidy on the inside. I'm going to go ahead and leave this outside part. I'm going to trim this little tail down right there. And now comes the fun part. We're going to take our little strip set and we will place it right side down. It's actually going to look like this when we're finished. We want to have the fabric 1 up at the top, fabric 2 at the bottom. And the trick to this one is when you lower your needle, like right now if I lower my needle, that needle goes exactly at that intersection of the seam. So what we need to do is place our needle exactly at that intersection of the seam. That's why we press them open. So if I lay that under there, lower my needle, make sure it goes right at that seam. I'm keeping this edge, the raw edges together. Now I know I have it placed right, and I can go ahead and start my stitching, and it'll stitch that seam for me. So let's pull this forward so we can see. There it is. I'm going to pull it forward, and look at that. I've got a beautifully matched seam. So again, we're going to give this a really good finger press. And now this step is a seam, is a tack down going this direction. So another good tip is to pull this nice and smooth and then lower your needle. And you want that seam that we were talking about, you want your needle to go right into that seam line. And if your needle goes right into that seam line, you'll have a perfect point on the left side of your block. Love perfect points. You will continue with your neutral thread at this point. So now we have this. Looking good so far. Because I have white and white at the top and bottom of this, again, I want to trim this to a scant 1/4 inch. So I don't have any of my blue showing through. And the sides, I'm just going to give it a rough trim. Now the last 2 steps. What was that?
That is a spam call calling me
Oh!
at the worst time.
Yeah. I was going to say, well, I don't know where my phone is. I don't think So the next 2 steps are seams for my fabric 1. So I will place that right side down to the center section. I want to make sure I overlap enough that I don't see my blue fabric underneath. I'll stitch that seam. We're going to flip this guy out of the way for now. We're not going to worry about finger pressing at this point. We're just going to get it out of the way so that we can seam this end. And we will put this right sides together. Again, I'm making sure my white overlaps my blue because I don't want that to show through. And we'll go ahead and stitch that seam. So now, look at that. We've got the piecing done. So I'm going to give this seam and the last seam that I just did a really good finger press. I'm not going to use this block, so I'm not going to worry about changing my thread to the water soluble. But this step, you will change it to water soluble. And it's really, really important for this step. And the reason is because when you go to trim it later and sew these little pieces together, you don't, if your seam is going to show or your tack down is going to show a little bit, you certainly want to be able to get rid of that thread. So water soluble at this step is really important. I'm going to go ahead and put in my quilting thread and stitch the water soluble step. That way I don't have to change it later. but you will use water soluble. So I'm going to make sure this is nice and finger pressed. So there we have our perfectly pieced little block. Look at that. Lots of fun. The last step on this block is the quilting. So we'll let it quilt. So Aubrey, maybe we could answer a couple questions while this quilts.
Yeah, that sounds good. You're gonna probably have to speak up because when your machine's going, it can get difficult to hear you.
How's this? Better?
Yes.
Okay. So Judy wants to know, does it matter what side of the battleizer and wool is up? If you're using wool, it doesn't really matter what size battleizer or what side of your battleizer is facing up, because the wool's going to cover it anyway. The wool, I don't think I know the difference between the top side and the other side. I just use it. I don't worry about what side is up at all. And Gail says she's a bit behind. We took a couple of days off. I started this because I thought it was awesome. You took a couple days off of work so you can get back on track.
I know. I saw that too. It's cute.
That's good. And Diana wants to know, are these made with the 22-inch strip? So I believe that one was made with the full-size strip. Let me grab my instructions. So the fabric 1 and 2 is the full strip, and the fabric 2 and 3 is the 22-inch strip. Because you need more of the strip set 1, that's the fabric 1 and 2, and you need less of the strip set 2. So hopefully that clears that up for you. Cheryl wants to know what machine I'm sewing with. I'm sewing with a Janome CM17, but any embroidery machine can do these. Brenda wants to know if I recommend tape to hold fabric down. I tried tape once. I had better luck with my fingers. I'm wondering why you would have to do the strip sets. If you don't do the strip sets, you have no way of seaming that. Since all these blocks fit in the hoop, why couldn't they be pieced one at a time? It can't be done. Trust us. Okay, so now, what do you think? I got the quilting done on that one.
Beautiful. I love the tip too with, putting your needle down. That's huge.
Right, exactly. So Laura wanted to know why you had to do strip sets. Well, if you didn't do a strip set here, because I first laid down the blue, then the purple. So if I laid the blue over that and stitched the seam and flipped it, I'd have 2 raw edges. So there's no way to do it. So you have to do a strip set there. Hopefully that answers your question. So now the next one, I'm going to fix something on my machine real quick here. The next one is Ohio Star 2, which is the very center of your Ohio Star block. And as you can see, I already did my placement stitch. I already tacked down my wool and did the placement stitch on the wool. And now the next step, let me get my instructions. I took them way over here. So the first step is to take a little white triangle and place it right up here. I am going to go ahead and switch to my dark thread just so you guys can see what I'm up to. Give me a minute to do that. Okay, so we're going to take this little white triangle and we'll place it up and over up at this top area here of this particular block. And I like to make sure I have at least a 1/4 inch on these two sides and a little extra at the top. And we'll let that tack it down. And again, you would be using water-soluble thread. So there's that one. The next one is to take your fabric 2, which is blue, and you will place it right sides together with the fabric 1. You would switch out your water soluble thread with a neutral thread and you will stitch a seam. Bring this closer. So there's our seam that we just stitched. We're going to flip this fabric right side up and give it a really good finger press again. Smooth it out. And the next step is it will tack down this area right here. And this doesn't need a lot of trimming, but if it does, you would just give it a little bit of a trim. I like a scant 1/4 inch inside that block. And the next step is to take our strip set 2 and you'll put, it'll look like this when it's stitched. So you want to make sure your fabric 2 is up here and you will place it right sides together. And again, I'm just going to check my needle, lower the needle. I can see it goes right in exactly in that seam. So I will put these 2 right over the top, keeping these raw edges even. And when I lower that needle, I'm going to just make sure it goes right in that seam. There we go. That should be perfect, or good enough for me anyway. So when we fold this up, you can see I have a very nicely matched intersection. So I'll give this a good finger press. The next step, it's going to tack down this area right down here. You would stay with your neutral thread. But again, before I tack that down, I want to make sure that I have this seam in the right place. So if I lower my needle, I can see that that needle goes right in the seam, which is what I want. And then I'll go ahead and stitch that tack down. Then we'll trim this. This will be a scant 1/4 again. The outside edge I like to leave, just going to rough cut it. I'll leave a little extra out there. And then this is actually going to be the very, very center of our Ohio Star. And I'm going to use this pretty green color. So this will go right sides together, right over the top, line up my raw edges, and stitch the seam. Flip this down. Give it a really good finger press. And then it's going to tack that little center square down. So because this is a little bit long, I am going to give that a bit of a trim to about a scant 1/4 inch. And the next fabric will be my purple fabric, which is, I can never remember, fabric 3. So we'll lay that right sides together, keeping my raw edges even, stitch that seam. Give it a really good finger press. And the next step, it'll tack it down for me. So I want to make sure that's finger pressed very nicely. Let it tack. Little bit of a trim, again, a scant 1/4 inch right here. This is fabric 2, so this is next. So this will go right side to the last fabric, keeping all my raw edges even. Keeping with the same thread, we'll stitch that seam. Give it a finger press. And then it'll tack down. This one just needs a little bit of a trim. And then the last one is another strip set, and it will go just like this. So I will put it right sides together with my fabric 1 at the bottom. Again, just to make sure everything's aligning properly, I do check my needle, and it does go right at that seam line, which it should. And then this is the one you're responsible for. You need to get that placed right at the seam line. There we go. Let it sew the seam. And there we have a beautifully pieced block. Give this another finger press. Now this last step does require the water-soluble thread. So you will switch to the water-soluble thread. Because again, we're going to tack down all of these loose edges. We're going to get them all attached. So we want to stay with the water-soluble. So in case it shows after it's sewn together, you will be able to get rid of it. Now, if you have the ability to slow your machine down while doing this step, I recommend you do, because you got lots of loose edges. So if I slow it down, I can take my time, make sure everything is laying flat. Oh, I wanted to show you right down here, as it's coming down here. I'm going to turn this little corner back, and I can see that green line there is my placement line. And I'm going to make sure that that seam that I have on my strip set is going to line up with that. It pretty much does, but it doesn't hurt to give it a shot. Okay, there's another beautifully pieced block. Just because I'm a neat freak, I'm going to trim these. You don't have to. And the very last step on this one is the quilting.
Hey, Linda.
Hey, what?
I have started a whole bunch of questions, and I was thinking you could take a look at those. A lot of strip set cutting questions. Maybe you could read through them while I take them over to the website for a couple announcements, and then that'll give you a minute to look through those while we're quilting. So I'm going to take you guys over to the website because we do have a lot of really cool stuff coming up, and I want to make sure you know. So first, let's talk about this one. Linda, not only is Linda the Hoop Sisters co-founder and the digitizer and designer on the Mystery Quilt Project, she also owns 2 local quilt shops, and they are celebrating 35 years in business, which is super cool. So we're going to have a Hoop Sisters pop-up shop in her store Friday, August 9th and Saturday, August 10th. The hours are on screen there, as well as her address. But if you come over to HoopSisters.com, you can actually register for this event. It doesn't cost anything. This is just going to help us with planning purposes. But if you click into that, it'll take you over here. You can put your name, email, all that good stuff. We've got some fantastic testimonials from a fall open house we did last year. So this is just going to be a fun event where Sarah, Annie, and I are actually coming too. So all of us are going to be hanging out in Woodstock celebrating 35 years for Sewing Concepts. So that's fantastic. The other thing I want to mention is we're going to be live a lot this week. Sarah and I are actually coming live tomorrow and Friday, and we're going to reveal the Let Freedom Ring 3-block wall hanging. There's a really super cute free gift with this one if you register. So that, again, is on our website at hoopsisters.com if you want to come hang out with us tomorrow too. So, okay, that's all I got.
Okay, so I'm looking at the questions.
Mm-hmm.
Let me kind of get, a lot of them are the repeated questions. So
yeah, I starred everything. I was just like, maybe this will help you.
Yeah. I'm just going to turn off the machine. Okay.
Also, Anne wants to know when I'm going to show my embroidered quilt. And I'm going to do that in the year 2039.
I'm going to write that down.
Okay.
Let's see. It's 2024. That's what, 15, 16 years from now?
Yeah.
Annie and I will be very old. Okay, let me see here. Some of these I answered. So Kimberly wants to know, I can put these, how can I put the comments up? There we go. Oh, I just tap on it. She came in late and may have missed. What are the widths of the strips, 3 or 2 3/4? That is going to be on your cutting chart from your fabric and thread key. That's exactly where that's going to be. So I'm not going to answer that question because I don't know what size you're doing and I don't want to confuse anybody. But if you look at your fabric and thread key for the size block you're doing, you'll find your widths there. So Carol says She's confused about making the strip sets. She doesn't see it on the cutting directions. Okay, I think I just answered that. It is on the fabric and thread key. The cutting of the fabric for the strip sets is on the fabric and thread key. It's not in the monthly sewing directions. Hopefully that answers your question. What size are the strips and what size are the cross cuts? That is all on the cross cuts. The size of the strips is on the fabric and thread key. The cross cut sizes, because we don't tell you what to do with the strips until the directions come along, are on the instructions. On page number 2 of your Ohio Star instructions shows you the cross cutting and your strip sets. So let's see, that's the same question.
I think that helps a lot, just knowing
Good.
where to look on fabric and thread.
Where to look, exactly, because
you could have pre-cut your fabrics.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If you pre-cut your fabrics, like I think almost everyone did, if you didn't, you've got to do that first. Step number 1, cut your fabrics. Step number 2, the cross-cutting of the strip sets is actually in the directions. Okay. Linda says she may have missed it. What thread do we use to make the strip set? So I like to use any good quality cotton quilting thread. I use Orfel in my machine, but whatever you like to do to make your strip sets is fine. No particular, got to match your fabric, of course. Actually, I used white. Nobody's going to know. Anne says, how can you show how to prevent fabric show through at the seam? So I think she's talking about when we stitched this little seam. Where am I? This little seam right here. And then we attach the white. I need to trim this fabric down to a scant 1/4 inch so that when you put the white on, the blue doesn't show through. Just like regular quilting, you know, when you want to press, you always want to press to the dark, or you want to make sure it's covered. So you just want to do, if you keep your trimming inside the block, pressed to a scant 1/4 inch, you shouldn't really have a problem of your fabric showing through. Okay, I believe, Carol, I answered this question about she didn't see the strip set 1 and 2 in the cutting directions. It'll be in your fabric and thread key. Marcia, the same thing. So Sue MC wants to know how you would adjust the strip if the needle doesn't come down to the correct place. So it's not attached. That little piece of a strip set is only attached at the seam. So if that needle doesn't come to the right place, you just kind of scooch it over a little bit. Pretty easy to do. Nancy says, what if you can't lower your needle? You can. Just turn your hand wheel on the side of the machine. You turn your hand wheel on the side and your needle will go down, and then you turn your hand wheel back up when you're ready to stitch. Oh, thank you, Candace. She says, I really appreciate these lives and videos. I looked at the instructions as I printed it out earlier today and almost convinced myself that I'd made a mistake with this one. Oh gosh, yeah, it's kind of scary. As usual, watching it in action, I can now feel comfortable with the process. I do have one fabric chosen, so now to find the other. Yeah, I think when you see things done, it kind of demystifies it. When you first look at this, it can be a bit intimidating. So that's why we like to do the videos. Oh, okay, for the strip sets, are the cross-cut dimensions? Okay, this is another specific question. Carol, I'm going to refer you to your instructions for your cross-cut dimensions on the strip set. It actually does tell you right here what your cross-cut dimensions are, right here. So you'll find that on page 2. And then it does not make sense to cross-cut the piece strip sets that are 22 by 2.5. Okay, let me try to understand Carol's question. Does not make sense to cross-cut this piece strips that are 22 by 2.5. Huh? I'm not sure what you mean, Carol. I am not sure. All the strip sets, you have to refer to your cutting directions to get the proper width and then the crosscut width is on the instruction. So hopefully, if you have any other questions, maybe you can email me, linda@hoopsisters.com, and I can help you because I'm not really sure what you're saying. Okay.
I did pop your contact info up there too. So
Thank you.
if you guys have something specific, you can always reach out to us after too. Sometimes it's hard to know what someone means in a comment.
Yeah, there's a few people are saying something is missing. It's not missing. Part of it is on your cutting, when we cut it initially, and the rest of it is on your instructions. So I think if you refer back to your cutting, you'll see, because it'll actually say in the cutting to save remaining fabrics. So those are the fabrics that you will use in your strip sets. There'll be quite a lot of chunks of fabric left from that. So that's what you'll use to sew together. Hopefully that makes sense.
And if not, our contact information is below. We'll be happy to help you out one-on-one too.
Yep. Okay, so I'm going to let the machine finish doing a little bit of embroidery. Got 1 minute to go. So I don't know if you wanted to show them something, Aubrey, because then I get it ready for trimming.
Oh gosh, I'm running out of things to show you.
Well, we can just watch the machine if you want.
What did you say?
You could just put it on the machine if you want.
Okay, I'll put it over there for right now. And
actually, it's done. It's done.
Oh, perfect.
But I do have to move my camera. That's not me breaking stuff. I'm just taking this. Oh, okay, let's see. I'm upside down. Okay, so these are my blocks all stitched. I'm going to take them out of the hoop.
Those colors are super pretty.
I love them. So the first thing we want to do before we go and cut is we want to mark our blocks. So Ohio Star 1, here you can see our cutting diagram just like we had with the 9 patch. So we're going to pretend that we are cutting A2. So I'm going to label all these blocks A2. And this first A2 right here, I have to have my battleizer on the left side of the block because that block will go on, that red area is where the binding is going to go. So my battleizer will stay here. And then the rest of the sides of A2 get trimmed with the trimmer by George and the metal edge, and we will completely remove the battleizer from the back of the block, from your seam allowance. So see where I have a little bit of purple showing through here? Want to make sure we don't see anything. No fabric coming through. A 60 millimeter blade. So There's the front of my block trimmed up. The battleizer's removed where it needs to be removed. And then I like to flip it over and trim my fabric, leaving a 1/4 inch from my cut edge of my battleizer. So there's A2, that's the left side of the block. And then this A2 right here, this is also A2. This one gets trimmed on all 4 sides using a trimmer by George. And you can see that. I'll show you right here on the instructions. This is A2 and E6. We're going to trim all of these blocks on all 4 sides using the trimmer. Anybody have cicadas by them?
I'm surprised we don't hear them here more because we do have them in Ohio. They're driving you nuts.
I can hear them in the house with everything closed up.
They're big this year, aren't they?
They're so loud. And they're not everywhere where I live. Like in town where I live, you don't hear them as much. Of course, some people I know that live in different parts of the town I'm in, they don't have any. Some are overrun. We are overrun.
I have too many kids to hear anything. Everything's loud at my house, so I could have some else.
So here's my other A2, and I want to point out, this is the way it's stitched in the hoop, just like this, but it needs to be like this, of course. So I'm going to mark my A2 this way, up at the top. I like to mark my blocks. I'm using a Frixon pen or a water-soluble pen or whatever you need to use so it'll show up. I do it in the seam allowance because sometimes this type of pen will leave a mark. So there's 2 of my A2s. And then this is the middle of my block, which is Ohio Star 2. So let's flip to that cutting direction. So on this one, my A2, I need to trim all 4 sides with the trimmer by George. So I don't have to worry about leaving anything for binding. I think when I'm done, I'm going to go over more on the strip sets because I still see a lot of confusion. Okay.
That would be a good idea.
Okay.
We'll get you guys taken care of. Don't worry. Even if it isn't, even if after the live you're still like, what the heck? We will get you taken care of. And apparently you need to move to Oregon because they don't have them there. The cicadas. Yeah.
Well, you know, they come every 17 years. It's not like it's a big deal.
Yeah.
I mean,
it's a big
deal. It's a big deal when they're here, but it's not an often big deal. Okay, so here's my little pieces for A2.
So pretty.
Cute. Okay, so let's talk about sewing them together. Let me shuffle some things here. Okay, so first of all, this is going to be my D7 block. So you lay out your block. Oh, I almost messed this up. So this purple goes in the middle. Make sure you get it laid out the right way first. And we're going to sew these two together right here. So if I put them right sides together, I can pin it, put a pin right through that seam and right through to the one across from it. Give it a pinch. And put a second pin in. And then this one, we put a pin right at that basting stitch corner, and again across from the basting stitch corner. Give it a pinch, put a second pin in, and then this is the same thing. We're going to put a pin right at that seam and come through to the second side and put a pin right at that seam. Give it a pinch, second pin in, and one last time, pin right at the corner, come through to this corner, give it a pinch, and put a second pin in. So then you will take that to the machine and you will actually stitch it right on that basting line, that last basting line that we did. You'll do a small back tack up here, stitch right on the basting line all the way down, and do a small back tack right there. And then you will have this. So that's sewn together. And now we need to press this. And these, there are directions in your instructions on which way to press them. And all of these seams are actually going to be pressed. This seam will actually be pressed away from the center. So I like to use the little strip stick and press my seam away from the center. The strip stick is rounded on one end, flat on one end. The flat side goes to the ironing board, and it just keeps you from smashing your beautiful quilting. So then we're going to pin the next one on and stitch that one. So that's what we've got going here. So this one's all pressed. Press the seam toward the outside. And then we make sure that this fabric is all facing toward the middle. It'd be too easy to do this, which is not right. It has to be this way. So we'll pin this one the same way. Just pin all of your match points. So that's pinned, so we'll stitch that the same way. And then when you come back, here it is sewn on, and then your seams will be pressed away from the center. So that's your little Ohio star block.
So cute.
Now the quilted block, I'm not going to demo that today because it's exactly the same as the 9-patch block, where you have your placement stitch. You place your wool if you want to. And then you place your fabric one, and then you do all the quilting. So the steps are identical as the 9-patch block. So you can refer to that if you haven't seen it. You're going to make 6 of the Ohio Star quilted blocks. And then we also have cutting directions for that as well, because some of them are going to be on the outer edge of your quilt. So that's where the red is. So where the red is, you'll trim it 1/4 of an inch from your basting line through your battleizer and your fabric. And then these 3 lines, you'll completely remove the battleizer from the edge. The same with F1, this will go in the corner. So we need to leave battleizer in the top and on the right side. And then you'll trim these 2 sides, completely removing your battleizer. Okay. So, should we do some questions?
Yes, ma'am. Oh,
I didn't mean to.
whoa.
There we go. Gotta move some stuff. So, I'm gonna start at the bottom. Oh, hey, Gail. Gail's watching. She says she loves my pin and pinch and pin technique. Thank you, Gail. So Sandy says, am I right in thinking that that some of the strip sets are called Save Remaining Fabrics? Yes. So let's talk about that. I think the confusion is the cutting is all on your fabric and thread key. So for those of you saying the cutting is not on the instructions, you're right, because it's on the fabric and thread key. And it'll say, I'm just going to read fabric 2, for example, week 2. You had to cut 1 strip 2 3/4 wide, and then you cross cut 10 2 3/4 inch squares, and then you cut those into triangles. So that took care of that 2 3/4 inch wide strip. Then you had to cut 2 2.5 by width of fabric strips. So that's your whole width of fabric. And you cross cut one of those into 2.5 by 22. And it says to save the rest. So that is what I'm talking about. So if you're missing your cutting for your strip sets, refer to your fabric and thread key, because they're right there.
Okay, good.
Did I miss anything else, Aubrey?
I have no idea. I started a whole bunch of stuff and it was all about the strips.
Hopefully that clears it up, because the cutting is all in the fabric and thread key. I can't say that enough. That we don't give, we only give for the strip sets, we only give the cross cutting of the strip sets, because you've already cut the strips. So hopefully that.
I think that will help. Just know there's 2 different documents to look at. One you had early, one you got this week. But if you have more questions, we will gladly look at it for you. And our contact information is below. Clear to me, Gail. Okay, good.
Thank you, Gail.
Clear, so that's good. But we're here for help if you need it. Catherine asked, is the open house come and go?
Yeah.
Your open house.
We'd like you to come. We'd like you to come, and then we'd like you to go. I don't know.
Whenever you want.
Yeah. You can come and stay.
Yeah.
Catherine, we'd love to see you again this year.
Yes.
Yeah.
What side of the battleizer should be on top? So there is a scrim.
There is.
But earlier, it doesn't really technically matter, but maybe you could talk on that a little bit more too.
The battleizer has a scrim, and you can't really see it. You can kind of feel it. The scrim side is the rough side. If I'm not using wool, I like the scrim side down. But if you're using wool, it doesn't make any difference, because you're going to put wool on top of it. So I also like the scrim side to be down if you're putting your block, if you're putting your back on your block in the hoop, because it kind of grabs the fabric. So I do like to have the scrim side down. I kind of do look for that, but it's not a huge deal if you do not have it down.
Okay. Linda said, I noticed that the wool sizes on the thread key are slightly larger than the dimensions on the weekly instructions. Does it matter?
Really? Let me check that. The wool sizes.
And while she's looking at that, Colleen said she came in late. Is there one type of block to do this week? Yes, they're both Ohio Star. One's pieced, one's quilted. So yes-ish, kind of. They're both Ohio Star.
So she says the wool size is different than the instructions.
Then the fabric and thread, the instructions versus the fabric and thread key.
I don't see the wool size listed on the instructions, but I can look at that later.
Maybe email her. email Linda.
Linda,
she has a Y instead of an I in her name, so make sure you do that. And she can look at that. No, I don't think that we're offering classes during the pop-up shop. It'll be more like open house style, like what you did last year with us, Catherine. Except it'll be at Linda's store. So that's kind of fun too, because then you can shop her store too. You can get fabrics and all fun things like that.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
I do not see wool sizes listed on the instructions. So Linda, let me know where you're seeing that.
Okay. And then can you see the starred question from Paulette that I just put up there?
Let me see.
It doesn't make sense to me, but it might make sense to you.
Okay, so going back to cutting, it says at the very top to cut background 5/9 by SOFT. Yes, you cut that background first. You must be doing, based on the size you mentioned, Paulette, you are probably doing the 8-inch blocks. And at the very top of your fabric and thread key, it does tell you from fabric 1, background, cut 5, 9.5 by width of fabrics. I think that's what you mean by, I think SOFT is width of fabric. And then you cross cut that into 9-inch squares. So yeah, you could do that first, definitely.
It's like decoding the question, right? Oh, I'm getting so many spam calls. Sorry. Okay. Sorry, I'm just checking more of these. Sandra said she's too far away to come to the open house. We get it. That's why we do a lot of virtual. Okay. All right. Well, I think that covers it. Unless you have something else.
No, I think we got it all.
And if you are a spam call from France, mine's not from France. Mine's from all over the US. But if you still have any confusions at all, we will gladly help you and we will gladly take a look at what you have going on. It'll be so much more helpful to talk to you one-on-one and figure out what you need. So our contact information is below. And we have Linda's and Nina's, so you can reach out and we will get you taken care of. And then we will be back again next week. And we're going to have week 3 already, which is crazy. Yeah. It always goes really fast. So we've got more fun coming at you for week 3. We will be live next Wednesday at the same time, same place, 2 p.m. Eastern, 1 p.m. Central. And we'll drop the files by 10 in the morning next Wednesday. So excited to see your blocks come together. Keep posting them in the group and we will keep. Oh, okay. I got comments coming in from all sides. So I'm like, wow. All right. Okay, so contact us if you need additional help. Otherwise, we will see you next Wednesday. And don't forget, Sarah and I are actually coming live. We've got some patriotic fun tomorrow and Friday. So we will be live then too. And we have a super cute free gift. So go get registered for that. In fact, Nina, if you could drop the link, that would be fantastic. And we will see you guys tomorrow, Friday, and next Wednesday.
Okay.
Sound good? Okay.
Post your pictures.
Yes. All right. Okay. Bye-bye.
Bye.